And I thought I will never go into films until if I'm going to be offered something in films, it must be something I've already played in the theatre. And it so happened that I'd done an stage adaptation of Great Expectations, in which I'd also appeared.
It's Holy Pocket, wasn't it?
That's right, yes. And David Lean and Ronald Neame had seen that and remembered it, and then they decided to do the film, and they also remembered me, and as the war was coming to its close, they finished actually, contacted me. And that was the start of, working for the films.
But even with that success, it's odd, it seems to me, that you managed to land the part of Fagin in Oliver Twist, because after all, you were still quite young, and in theory, for you to play Fagin was ridiculous.
Well, that's the only time I've ever gone out after a part. I absolutely was determined to play that. And David Lean was wonderful. I mean, he listened to me. I mean, my thing to him was at the time, you would never think of, when I heard they were going to do Oliver Twist, you'd never think of casting me as Fagin. He said, not in 1,000 years, And I said, that's where you're wrong, because you people in films are only interested in types. You're not interested in anyone actually trying to act. And I think he was a bit startled and didn't agree. And he said, well, I'll give you a test. So a test was arranged, and I got it.
Mind you, your interpretation of the part caused a little trouble, I think, in America. They were a bit touchy about it, weren't they?
Yes, the Russians were touchy about it in Central Europe because they were determined that it should be called anti-Semitic. The word Jew was never mentioned in it because there was no question of it being anti-Semitic. As indeed, Dickens was accused of being anti-Semitic, which he hadn't, and then he went and wrote another novel, to make a sympathetic... I maintain the character could have been, Jew, Arab, or nothing.
Right. Perhaps the richest vein of your film career, although you might not agree, was the Ealing comedies.
Well, I was very lucky over that. Sir Michael Balkan sent me, and Robert Hamer, whom I became great friends, sent me the script of Kind Hearts and Coronets, just as I was going away on holiday, asking me if I would play 4 parts in it. And I read it on a beach in France, and I collapsed with laughter on the first page and didn't even bother to get to the end of the script. I went straight back to the hotel and sent a telegram saying, why 4 parts, why not 8?
Another Ealing comedy, greatly underestimated, I think, was Man in the White Suit.
Well, I thought that was a marvelous film. I thought Sandy McKendrick did a wonderful job on that. I remember being very angry at a notice coming out saying that it was an ignoble film because the suit disintegrated at the end and people jeered and laughed. And I thought they totally missed the point of the whole thing. And I thought it was very original and amusing to look at, and a kind of classic of its time.
Because this was about a man who'd invented an indestructible
material, yes. So a cloth wouldn't ever wear out.
Of course, the other Ealing comedy that everybody remembers is The Lady Killers. How do you think that one stands up? 1955.
I don't know. I haven't seen that. That was Sandy McKendrick again. I would have thought, all right. I don't know.
In 1960, you made Tunes of Glory, and you played the part of Jock Sinclair, who's very extrovert, larger than life. The antithesis, I would have said, of your own personality.
Yes, I agree there. But then I rather like attempting that. I don't really think that I'm terribly like Fagin. But I made an attempt.
No, but that's so extraordinary, isn't it? That's such a bizarre character. It doesn't really matter. But to play somebody who really has all the qualities that you don't possess, all the kind of exuberant ebullience that you obviously don't have as a private personality. Did you find it therapeutic in a way?
Not therapeutic. When I read the script, I said, that's the part I would like to play, and eyebrows went up, and I imagine a lot of whispered, distressed conversations went on in back rooms. But I had a feeling that I could sort of expand and explode with it in some odd... I know, just something, it caught my imagination.
In the 60s, your film output slowed down. You did a lot of stage work, Ross, Exit the King, Macbeth, Dylan on Broadway. Do you think of yourself first and foremost as a man of the theatre?
I think of myself as an actor. Yes, I'm sure. But I started in the theatre. My early years were the theatre. And funnily enough, I've nearly always, with the exception, I think, of 1 year when I did maybe 2 or 2.5 films in, I have always managed to do something in the theatre in it, because it's very good, I find, to tackle or come in face to face with a live audience. And I also wanted to keep my, many actors who go into films who've been in the stage, and a long years go by, and then they get a chance to go into the theatre again, and they become petrified at facing an audience and shy away from it and get very frightened. And I've been determined that that shouldn't happen to me. And on the whole, I'm happier in the theatre, not from any other reason than in the theatre you're your own boss. If something has to be cut, a scene has to go, or a few lines or a speech or something, then you can mold your performance round that gap, or if something extra goes in, whatever the case may be. Whereas acting for the films, which has its other delights, if something goes, you cannot adjust your performance if it's snipped at the end. I mean, I've seen performances of myself on the screen in which the end has been put at the beginning, and vice versa. And if I knew that had been going to happen, I would have performed differently throughout. And so I feel I'm not my own boss when filming, whereas I am in the theatre.
Unlike many other actors who've achieved your kind of eminence, you've never turned to directing. I wonder why not.
Directing for films? Well, no one's asked me. And anyway, I would be pretty chary of doing it. I have been tempted to suggest it once or twice, but then I feel I could only direct something about which I felt I really did know. God knows what that subject could be. I've directed in the theatre a couple of times. Now, I would like to, but it would have to be in an area in which I thought I really do know those people, or I know that situation, or that background, or whatever it might be. Every year I toy with an idea, but I never quite dare push it through.
So, Alec Guinness, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.